The termination wasn't the worst part, it was the silence that followed. Liam didn't just fire me. He sterilized my career with a lie he created, and the industry I'd mastered for a decade turned its back, treating my name like a contagion. I watched my life savings evaporate while he accepted awards for crisis leadership on the very disaster he caused. The betrayal was a cold knife, twisting slowly in the public eye. My reputation was ashes, but the core was still hot. He called my meticulous strategies controlled burns. Now, I just needed to find the accelerant. I always knew the Aegis project was volatile. It was Viridian Dynamics' bid to streamline their environmental compliance, a necessary pivot, but one that required surgical PR handling. I spent 18 months building the narrative firewall, anticipating every possible activist angle, every regulatory jab. I was the senior crisis manager. I didn't just put out fires, I prevented them. Liam, my boss and the VP of Communications, preferred to take credit for the prevention. He was the big picture guy, which usually meant he was good at golf and better at taking long lunches. He had the hair, the handshake, and the vocabulary of a man who read business self-help books exclusively. I had the data, the strategy, and the scars. "We're golden, Maya," Liam had beamed at me 2 weeks ago, clapping a heavy hand on my shoulder in his glass-walled office, overlooking the city. "The board loves the Aegis rollout. You've done stellar work." Really stellar. I allowed myself a microsecond of satisfaction. A promotion had been hinted at. A real title, not just the work of one. 3 days later, the leak happened. It wasn't a sophisticated hack. It was a clumsy dump of internal memos onto an eco-blog, revealing that Viridian's streamlining involved ignoring 3 critical safety protocols to save costs. The optics were catastrophic. The stock price didn't just drop, it went spelunking. I mobilized instantly. My team was ready. We had the holding statements, the third-party validators, the pivot strategy. I walked into Liam's office with the blue-chip plan. He wouldn't meet my eyes, he was staring at his desk blotter. "Liam, we need to move on this within the hour. The news cycle is already turning." "The board met," he said, his voice tight, rehearsed. "They want blood, Maya." I felt the first chill. "I have the plan, we can control this." They traced the leak. He finally looked up, his expression a masterful performance of pained regret. "It came from your access credentials." "A thumb drive you logged as Aegis backup sept." "That's impossible. I secured that drive in the departmental safe. I haven't touched it." "It was found in your desk, Maya, plugged into your docking station." The room spun. Someone had planted it, someone with access to my office and the safe. "Liam, you know my protocols. Someone is setting me up. The evidence is conclusive and the timing." "Well, you were vocal about the budget cuts, weren't you?" "The pressure." He sighed, shaking his head. "I defended you, I really did. But the optics, we have to show decisive action." He was firing me, scapegoating me to save his own skin. The realization was so sudden, so profound, it felt like a physical blow. The man I had covered for, the man whose sloppy emails I rewrote, the man who couldn't find the track changes button without assistance, was sacrificing me. "You did this," I whispered. His face hardened, the mask slipping. "Security is outside, please make this easy." The walk of shame is a cliché for a reason, it's devastating. I had managed dozens of executive departures, coaching them on how to leave with dignity. I got none of that grace. 2 large, silent security men flanked me as I packed my desk. The entire open-plan office went dead silent, 100 eyes studiously avoiding mine. I saw Sarah, the junior comms assistant, in her cubicle. She looked physically ill, her face white as paper. She quickly looked down. Viridian's press release went out before I even got home. Viridian Dynamics announces the immediate termination of Maya Chen, Senior Crisis Manager, following an internal investigation into the unauthorized disclosure of sensitive materials. They didn't just fire me, they branded me. The first month was a blur of adrenaline and denial. This was a mistake, a misunderstanding. My contacts would vouch for me. They didn't. The PR world is small and viciously self-protective. My name was now synonymous with internal threat and catastrophic leak. My calls went straight to voicemail. Emails received curt, one-line replies, "We are not hiring at this time." I watched my industry move on without me. I saw Liam on CNBC talking gravely about strengthening internal controls and restoring trust. He looked sleek and sorrowful. He was brilliant in his mediocrity. By month 3, the adrenaline was gone, replaced by a thick, suffocating fog of shame. I stopped applying for jobs. Why bother? Google my name, and the Veridian disaster was the first 20 results. My savings began to vanish. Rent, Cobra health insurance, the mounting legal fees for a wrongful termination suit my lawyer warned was an uphill battle against a corporate giant. I isolated myself. My apartment, once a stylish reflection of my success, became a bunker. I stopped answering the phone. I couldn't bear the pity in my friends' voices or the skepticism in my family's. "How could you be so careless, Maya?" my sister had asked. Careless. The word was an insult. I hit bottom on a Tuesday. It was raining and I was out of coffee. I stared at the empty jar and the absurdity of my collapse hit me. I, Maya Chen, who had navigated Fortune 500 companies through federal investigations and product recalls, couldn't manage my own life. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. Not the sharp, angry tears of the betrayal, but the hollow, exhausting tears of defeat. I was broken. Liam hadn't just taken my job, he'd taken my identity. I was no longer the fixer. I was the fixed. I stayed on that floor for an hour, feeling the cold linoleum seep into my bones. This was his victory. My silence, my ruin. When I finally stood up, something had shifted. The fog hadn't lifted, but the ground beneath it felt harder. Anger, cold and pressurized, began to replace the shame. I was a crisis manager, and my life was currently a crisis. It was time to manage it. The first step in crisis management is gathering intelligence. I started digging. I wasn't looking for a job, I was looking for the truth. I couldn't prove Liam planted the drive, but I could prove he was incompetent. I just needed a thread. One night, rereading the old Aegis memos, I found a comment from Liam buried in an email chain about the potential fallout. "Relax, Maya. It's a controlled burn. You scorch the edges so the center holds." Public memory is short. He had mocked my caution. He had treated a potential environmental disaster as a PR exercise. Controlled burn. The phrase stuck in my craw. Then came the catalyst. 6 months after my firing, I received an email to an old, obscure personal address. The subject line was blank. The body contained only a link to an encrypted file-sharing site and a password. My heart hammered against my ribs. I recognized the tradecraft. It was cautious, paranoid, and desperate. I downloaded the file. It was a single, recent email thread forwarded from Sarah, the junior assistant. The thread was between Liam and an external server management contractor, dated 2 weeks before my firing. "Liam, need access to M. Chen's archived security logs and remote access to her docking station. Quietly. R&D backup protocol test. Contractor, her station is live. Accessing archives requires her supervisor override. That you, Liam? Yes, do it tonight, leave no trace." There it was, the murder weapon. He hadn't just planted the drive, he'd used my own credentials, accessed remotely to make the leak look legitimate. I stared at the screen, the vindication rushing through me like a drug. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't careless. I was framed. Sarah, sweet, terrified Sarah, who couldn't meet my eye during the walk of shame, had been the admin ghost who BCC'd herself on the contractor correspondence, likely cleaning up Liam's sloppy digital trail. She must have lived in terror ever since. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't need to. Sarah had given me the match. Now I needed to build the pyre. The old Maya would have taken this straight to the board or the journal. The new Maya, the one forged in the ashes, knew better. Liam owned the board, and a straight leak would be dismissed as the bitter revenge of a fired employee. I needed a strategy that was undeniable, elegant, and devastating. I needed a controlled burn. I set up a burner laptop and created an anonymous blog, the Veridian Sentinel. My approach was counterintuitive, and that was its brilliance. The Sentinel wasn't an attack site. It was, ostensibly, a fan site for the old Veridian, the engineering-driven, ethical company that Liam was slowly eroding. My first post was titled, in defense of the core. I praised Veridian's history, lamented the stock drop, and subtly criticized the recent culture of reactive leadership that allowed the Aegis situation to fester. I didn't mention Liam. I didn't mention the leak. I was the concerned shareholder, the loyalist. The second post was the real probe. The cost of shortcuts. I discussed the Aegis project generally, dropping a seemingly innocuous detail. The specific security protocol, Protocol 7.4, that, if followed, would have prevented remote access tampering. It was a dog whistle. Liam would hear it. He knew Protocol 7.4 was the key. The voice of my narrative was shifting. The wounded victim was gone. I was the detached analyst, the strategic mind observing the board. I felt alive again. I was playing the game, and I was 10 moves ahead. The Sentinel gained traction. Mid-level Veridian managers, frustrated with Liam's reign, started sharing the posts. Then, Liam took the bait. I didn't expect him to be smart, but I didn't expect him to be reckless. The Sentinel had him spooked. He didn't know who was behind it, but the mention of Protocol 7.4 terrified him. Liam's counterattack was predictable, heavy-handed, and exactly what I needed. He called an all-hands meeting, and instead of addressing the company's performance, launched into a tirade about internal leaks and disloyalty. He announced a mandatory company-wide audit of all digital communications, overseen by Kroll, an expensive forensic investigation firm. This was the twist that could have broken me. Kroll was thorough. If they investigated Sarah, she was finished. The anonymous email, the forwarded thread, they would find it. Liam was using a sledgehammer to find a gnat, and he was about to crush my only witness. I had to act fast. I had to divert the heat. I needed an ally, or at least a useful tool. I called Marcus Thorne. Marcus was an investigative journalist at the Financial Chronicle. I had burned him twice before on stories, nothing malicious, just the nature of the business, so the trust was thin. We met at a diner in Queens, far from the prying eyes of Manhattan. Maya Chen, Marcus said, sliding into the booth. He looked older, more tired. The ghost returns. Heard you were doing yoga in Bali. The rumors of my enlightenment are greatly exaggerated, Marcus. I have a story, a big one. Veridian. His eyes narrowed. The grudgefuck story. Pass. The Liam Horgan is committing corporate fraud, and I can prove it story. That got his attention. You're radioactive, Maya. If I touch this, I need it ironclad. And I need to know why you're not just dumping it on Twitter. Because a dump is messy, I'm offering you a conviction. I didn't give him Sarah's email. Not yet. I gave him the Sentinel. I explained the dog whistles. I pointed him toward the Kroll audit, explaining that Liam was panicking. He's hunting a ghost, Marcus. He knows the Aegis leak was an inside job, and he's terrified the truth is coming out. Ask him why, if the leak was my fault, he's spending millions on a forensic audit now. Marcus looked at the blog, then at me. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Immensely. If this is smoke and mirrors, Maya, it's a controlled burn, Marcus, just follow the heat. The Kroll audit was underway, and the pressure inside Veridian was mounting. Sarah went dark. I had no way of knowing if she was safe. I had to assume she wasn't and accelerate my plan. I used the Sentinel to fan the flames. I started posting historical audits of Veridian's vendor contracts. Liam, in his arrogance, had been steering contracts to a shell company owned by his brother-in-law. It was penny anti-corruption, sloppy and easily provable if you knew where to look. I didn't have the smoking gun on the corruption. Marcus was digging into that, but I could create the perception of it. The Sentinel's new post. The Horgan vendor question, a pattern of preference. Liam lost his mind. In a display of breathtaking stupidity, he issued a company-wide memo forbidding employees from reading unauthorized external blogs. It was the Streisand effect on steroids. Readership of the Sentinel tripled overnight. I was embedding Chekhov's guns everywhere. In one post, I casually mentioned the inefficiency of Veridian's off-site server backups, the very servers Liam had illegally accessed. Liam was spinning. He was attacking the symptoms, the blog, the rumors, while ignoring the disease himself. He was fighting a PR war using my playbook, but he only knew the words, not the music. Marcus called me. His voice was tight with excitement. The brother-in-law's company is a ghost. Horgan is cooked on the vendor fraud, but the Aegis leak, that's the kill shot. I need more than suspicion. Patience, Marcus. The audit is making him sloppy. Kroll is interviewing the junior staff today. He's looking for the sentinel source. Fear iced my stomach. Sarah, I'll get you the kill shot, I said and hung up. I had one last card. When I left Viridian, I couldn't take client files, but I took my go bag, a hard drive of PR templates, and crucially, my old Palm Pilot, which I used for off-grid notes. And there it was. A note from 6 months ago, LH. Nervous about server logs, advised him STD. 90-day purge is automatic. He asked it to confirm. Check protocol 7.4 interaction. Liam thought the logs of his remote access were purged. He was wrong. Protocol 7.4 didn't just prevent tampering, it archived any attempt. The logs were sitting on a secure partition Liam didn't even know existed. I couldn't access them, but Kroll could. The climax was the annual shareholder meeting. It was Liam's big stage to reassure investors. I watched the live stream from my apartment, the burner laptop open beside me. The room was packed, the tension palpable. The Sentinel's accusations had tanked the stock further. Liam took the podium. He looked awful, sweaty, his expensive suit hanging loosely. Viridian is strong, he began, his voice wavering. The recent malicious rumors online are just that, malicious. We are conducting a full review, and we will find the source of this slander. I hit publish on the Sentinel. The new post was titled, "The Controlled Burn Fails." It was short. The truth about the Aegis leak is contained within the Protocol 7.4 archive logs. Why hasn't the Kroll audit checked them? What are they afraid of finding about Liam Horgan's access? Liam's face, broadcast in high definition, went ashen. He stopped speaking. In the audience, a man stood up. Marcus Thorne. "Mr. Horgan," Marcus said, his voice amplified by the room mic. "The Financial Chronicle is running a story tonight detailing the vendor fraud involving your brother-in-law. But more importantly, we have evidence that you personally authorized the remote access that caused the Aegis leak and framed Maya Chen." The room erupted. The board members at the front table stared daggers at Liam. "That's absurd," Liam shrieked, losing all control. "Maya Chen is a liar. She's behind the blog. Arrest her," he pointed wildly. The mask was gone, revealing the cowardly, incompetent man beneath. At that exact moment, the Kroll lead investigator, looking grim, walked up to the podium and whispered in the chairman's ear. The chairman's face turned to stone. Kroll had checked the logs. The chairman stood, gently took the microphone from Liam's trembling hand, and addressed the room. "Mr. Horgan has been relieved of his duties, effective immediately. Security will escort him out." I watched Liam being led away by the same guards who had escorted me out. He wasn't silent. He was screaming, pleading. It was over. The endgame twist wasn't that Liam fought back, it was how. In his final, desperate hour, he tried to burn Sarah. I found out later that when Kroll confronted him with the access logs, he claimed Sarah had stolen his credentials. But I had anticipated it. The night before the meeting, I had sent Marcus the final piece, Sarah's original forwarded email. I hadn't used it earlier to protect her, but now, with Liam cornered, it was the final nail. Marcus held it back for the perfect moment. When Liam tried to blame Sarah, Marcus simply tweeted the email chain. Liam wasn't just fired, he was finished. The SEC investigation into the vendor fraud ensured he would never work again. The silence returned, but this time it was peaceful. My phone rang 3 days later. It was Julian Croft, the chairman of the board at Viridian. "Ms. Chen," he began, his tone respectful, wary, "we owe you an apology. And a great deal more. The controlled burn is complete, Mr. Croft, the center held. Viridian will survive." He cleared his throat. "We need a crisis manager. The fallout from Mr. Horgan is extensive. The board would like to retain your firm as an external consultant. We are prepared to offer triple your previous salary, plus a substantial retention bonus." I walked to the window, looking out at the city. "My firm, I accept. But I set the terms, and I choose my own team." "Agreed. Good. My first requirement is that Sarah Jenkins is promoted to head of internal communications." A pause. Done. A week later, I walked back into the Viridian lobby. The security guard nodded respectfully. I didn't have a pass. I didn't need one. I got off the elevator on the executive floor. The open plan office was buzzing, but the anxiety was gone, replaced by the focused energy of a company rebuilding. Sarah saw me first. She stood up, tears in her eyes, and gave a single, sharp nod of gratitude. I walked past Liam's empty office and into my new one, the corner suite. It was bigger, brighter, and the view was better. I was no longer the woman who was fixed. I was the woman who broke the system and put it back together in her own image. I sat down at the empty desk, the master of the narrative once again, and I smiled. Crisis management, after all, is just about knowing when to strike the match. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Which part of the journey did you connect with the most? Share your thoughts in the comments.